he's coming at me. I mean, I was face to face with him. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't react. I mean, he was right there. And he was just right in my face. And so I was just staring at him. Brief, just split second moment of absolute terror. And that's it. I'm dead.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome. This is episode 192. What do we have again here? Oh, this time it's motorcycle versus semi-truck. These are just some of the most startling, stunning, incredible encounter stories that we do. And this time it's Kevin, motorcycle versus semi-truck. This usually doesn't turn out well, right? But we've had in the past, where do we start? Car versus pickup truck, car versus car, car versus wreckage, car versus, then it was semi-truck versus car. I mean, it's incredible. So, and I thought I would sprinkle in this episode some of those past episodes into this to help us understand some of this a little bit better. So last Christmas morning, when you were fast asleep waiting for Santa, yours truly here was on the national show Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. We've done this the last couple of Christmases. And I was sharing these kind of touched by heaven stories. And in the midst of it, I was sharing, in particular, these kinds of highway stories. And in Miami, waking up for no apparent reason, was Kevin. And he heard me and he went, I had one of those, and it took him right back to this experience that you are about to hear. And I always ask the question, how'd you find the podcast?
I found it on Coast to Coast. When that night that you were on,
right.
I was...
Oh, now I'm remembering your email. In fact, when you woke up and what you heard.
Yeah, because I had it on WIOD 610 here in Miami. And so I woke up and, I mean, it wasn't just that you were on, it was, it was right at the moment you were talking about.
Yeah, it was timing is everything. It's like an angel woke you up or something. Something was going on there.
Something, yeah, absolutely.
You're waking up and going, this is what happened to me. So feel free to fire away here, yeah.
One of the places that I always liked being was just, get on the motorcycle. My wife and I both ride. But just being on the motorcycle and out, to myself, in my own head, in my own thoughts, it's almost a spiritual experience itself, especially like down here when you're out away from the city and you're just out in nature, like riding through the Everglades or the Florida Keys or something. It's just, you're out in God's creation, and it's awesome.
And just that feeling of freedom and all of that, I would think.
Yeah, feeling of freedom and this sort of connection to nature. So I decided I'd take it to my mom's house so that I had a motorcycle to ride while I'm out there. And so I left Miami and started heading toward Dallas. And the first day was just a long highway ride. I think I rode about 14 hours. I rode from Miami to, made it as far as Baton Rouge.
That's a lot. That's a lot of bike riding.
Yep, it is. But I like the long distance. I can do it. I'm stopping every hour, every two and a half hours to get gas so I can stretch my legs. And I got up the next day and decided that, I had all day and I didn't want to ride the highway the rest of the trip. And so I got my Google Maps out and plotted a route. It turned out I had driven it before. They kind of ran from Baton Rouge up through Louisiana and in through East Texas. It still takes you through the towns, not around the towns. So you get to see all these, historic downtowns as you come through. And I think it was probably Hubbard, Texas. But as I came through town, I was approaching, it's one of those one stoplight towns. And as I approached the intersection, though, I noticed on the left, and I was probably going about 40 miles an hour. I noticed on the left coming towards me in the other lane, there was a car, and it was slowing down to make a turn away from me, a turn into a parking lot over on its side of the road somewhere. So it was slowing down. And I was coming up on the left-hand side of a semi truck that was going my direction. And so I was just coming up next to him. And as I was approaching the intersection, there was a semi behind the car that was coming towards me that was making that turn. And all of a sudden, at the last minute, he pulls into my lane right in front of me to get around that car. And he's right there in front of me.
And he's coming at you.
He's coming at me. I mean, I was face to face with him. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't react. I mean, he was right there. There was no room to swerve. It wasn't even like, sometimes on a motorcycle, you can kind of, you kind of split between vehicles to get out of trouble. There was no room to do that with this semi over on right next to me on the right side. And so I was just staring at it. And I had this brief, just split second moment of absolute terror. And it's just this instant feeling, and that's it. I'm dead. And then all of a sudden, and he was just right in my face, and I didn't do anything except get that feeling of terror. And then the next thing I know, I'm still on the motorcycle and I'm still on the road. I didn't know what was going on, and then I get this feeling of almost like road rage, and start thinking about turning around and chasing that semi down to just let him have it for killing me. And then I realized I'm not dead. I'm still on the motorcycle. So then I'm just like, okay, take a breath and just ride, and be careful. And then so all of a sudden I start getting this. All of this is playing out, and I start coming to the reality that I'm on a motorcycle. I better start paying attention to what I'm doing. And so I rode a couple of more miles, and then at that point, it was really starting to get to me. So I had to pull over. I pulled over into a gas station, just pulled up to the pump, didn't pump gas, just got off the bike, slowly took my gear off, just kind of sat on my seat. And I went in and I just got a beer, and I sat there and probably sipped it for an hour, just sitting on the curb, just kind of trying to think back through exactly what happened. And just realizing that, I didn't swerve. I didn't make a move that if I visualize it, there's a semi and his trailer right next to me, and there's one coming towards me right in front of me, and there's no daylight between the two. I didn't thread the needle like sometimes you can do in traffic when you're on a bike. I mean, I didn't feel anything, I didn't see anything. All I know is that I had that realization that I was about to die, and I didn't. I was still on the bike.
Jeez. Wow.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what this means. I don't know if I rode through the truck unharmed. I don't know if something moved me or the truck out of the way. I still don't know. I'll probably never know exactly until at least I'm on this earth.
Well, I don't know. What are we up to now? Maybe a half a dozen people or so on this podcast who have had similar experiences where suddenly I'm thinking of Jane as she's driving along and she realizes she is pulled in front of a semi on a highway. Okay, let's go back on this one. We're going to go back to Jane's story. I'm thinking episode 74, Brace for Impact. It was about 20 years ago. Jane was going home. Her father was very sick. It looked like his time was coming to an end. She was heading home.
I was going to merge from one highway to the other, and I noticed in my rearview mirror that a semi was coming straight behind me from the highway that I was merging on. And there was no way, Trapper, that I could move over or speed up to miss this vehicle. And you know how you prepare yourself? I don't know if you've ever been in any kind of an accident or have seen one. You kind of just prepare yourself for the impact of getting hit. I mean, this semi was coming no less than 65 or 70 miles, and it was a 55-mile zone. And I just looked at myself and I thought, well, Jesus is calling me home. This is not good.
You were bracing for impact.
I was totally bracing for impact. It's just when I was merging on, I just did not see it. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, it was coming, Trapper, and it was coming extremely fast. And like I said, I just braced myself for the impact, then nothing. There was about 2 seconds of nothing, and I heard 3 words. And those 3 words were, not your time. There was no way I wasn't going to get run over. I literally blinked my eye and the semi was in front of me. It had to have occurred in less than 2 seconds. I physically pulled the car off to the side. I was shaking and it was total disbelief. I'm like, how did this just happen? It's like I was terrified and completely calm at the same time. I will never forget the incident and how I felt, but more importantly, I will never forget those 3 words, not your time. And that was the weekend that my father passed away.
Oh.
And I remember it so distinctly, but those words were so calming. They were not alarming. I always kind of equate it to, was that my guardian angel? And I'm a big advocate of guardian angels. So, and it was such a sobering, quiet voice. I've never heard it before that instant, and I've never heard it afterwards.
If you would say male or female, you would say?
Male.
Male. Sure.
I pull off way over to the right, and I'm just sitting there shaking and trembling. And then all I could think of is, oh my gosh, I got to get home. My sister said, get home as soon as possible. And then that evening, my dad passed away.
It's not your time.
No voice, but
Yeah.
kind of that realization's there.
Yeah, Mike had a deal where I think it was a drunk driver in a truck, and basically it was this mountainous road where it gets to one lane at times in the middle of the night, and
I can't go to the right. I go into the lake. I can't go to the left. There's big boulders. And then right then, this guy comes flying over the rise in a truck. There's one guy, he's driving, and he's totally smashed. I can still see him right now. And he's headed right for my car. And I said the quickest prayer you could ever say. And all of a sudden, the entire car and my body, they became like Casper the Friendly Ghost. It's like I'm in another dimension or something. I don't even know how to explain it. And all of a sudden, I'm driving right through the guy's car. And I'm literally 3 feet away from him. And I'm passing him on his left side. He's on my right, rather, going right through his car. And he looks over at me. And I get to the other side of his car. And the car became solid again, and my body became solid again. And I slammed on the brakes, and I walked up to his car because he had stopped. I said, roll down the window. I'm motioning with my hand, and he's shaking his head back and forth. No. And I said, don't be afraid. I'm just a guy just like you are. There's nothing special here.
and was that the story you heard me talking about, by the way?
That's the one that you told. Yep.
It's inexplicable. Absolutely inexplicable. And
Absolutely.
So are you looking at your mirrors going, do you see the truck in your rearview mirror? Or are you even aware?
No, I wasn't even aware. You
just wanted to turn around and go chase him down and tell him, why did you kill me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even looking in the mirror. I mean, because there was no impact. There was that moment of terror that's just very brief and like nothing I'd ever felt before.
When you heard me talking about it on the radio, did you think that this was the only time maybe this had ever happened? Or did you realize that these are, I won't say common occurrences, but they certainly have happened before?
I guess I'd never really given much thought to if this had happened to other people. I think that what I had given thought to, and even, when I've told the story to my wife, and, it took me a long time to tell that story to anybody. But when I did tell it to my wife, when I told it to my sister, and just in my own, even before that, in my own thinking, I know that things like that happen. I didn't wonder if that specific sort of occurrence had happened. I do I guess it's, well, and I guess that was the subject of your show. I believed in, the concept of angelic interventions and things happening like that maybe we don't understand. But I hadn't really given thought to specifically like how, someone else either passing through or being moved out of the way or something like that.
Yeah. Did you go through the why me stage?
I did not.
Okay. I know some people go through, they'll just, okay, you're saving me for something. They believe in a God on some level, and everybody has their different concepts. There is a truth out there somewhere, but everyone has their own concepts. But some go through the concept of, okay, you saved me for something. I should be dead. Did that ever play?
It's interesting you say that, because I was like, shoot, I should have pulled up what I had written, because I didn't get the sense of that you hear, especially from more of the near-death experience, especially about, I still have a purpose, I still have something to do. I didn't really get that sense, and I think that may have been something that was missing, that I felt was missing from my experience. I think by not having that sense of purpose, and I was saved for something, I think that sort of is one of the things that caused me just still some of the spiritual confusion that I had, and kind of still trying to just kind of find my way spiritually. Like I mentioned earlier, I know there's something more. I know it's there. I know God is there, but trying to find, not really feeling the connection to it.
Yeah. Because this is one of those moments where I often say on the podcast that this, God shooting off the flare gun, trying to get our attention, trying to draw us into a closer relationship or into a relationship period, where sometimes it takes something like this just to, as you say, just kind of go, there has to be. There's no reason. There's no rhyme or reason why this happened. I know where I was. I know what happened, and I know that I didn't die. I wasn't hit. I wasn't hurt. There's more to this than I understand. And obviously sitting there sipping on your beer, that's where you were. I'm not getting this. What just happened?
Yeah, that's really what it was, except there was that's what I was thinking, but I was thinking it in much more colorful language.
What the heck?
Yeah. Yep. And because then it's like it wasn't, rather than that feeling of sense of purpose and being left, it was more of I should be dead. I mean, it was almost the opposite. It's like, almost like, okay, there's some sort of screw up here. It's almost a sense like that something went wrong in the universe, because I should be dead from that.
Growing up, I was like a little background, just faith in the home, yes, no, went away, came back, that kind of thing.
Both of my parents had grown up Baptist, and so it was strong. But both of my parents were very faithful, and mine kind of, some of it was partly going through the motions, and I think the faith was always there, but in terms of the practicing would come and go. I always knew that there was something.
Right.
Something more. But yeah, I've been kind of, it's always been there, but I've been sort of trying to find my way through it.
Right.
I got sober about 2 years ago, but I've had a few lapses. But after the last one, I really, I wanted to do something more than just AA. So I went more into the professional help route. But what I found there was I started doing a lot of reading, a lot of writing, more getting back into spiritual exploration, looking at a lot of Native American type spirituality, but just really reading a lot. And then that got me writing, and I just started writing one night. I do a lot of writing about fear and anxieties and different things. And I don't know why, but I just started writing one night about brushes with death, or I still struggle with kind of exactly what it was, but I just wrote about sort of 3 different experiences, and this was the one on the motorcycle was the big one.
You ever see the movie Heaven Can Wait?
Oh yeah,
Warren Beatty. It's one of my favorite movies
Love-
of all time. You know,
I love that movie.
if it's on, I can't not watch it. It's just so good. It's just so good. In his case, obviously, the angel took him out, assuming he was going to die. In your case, your angel. Okay, we mentioned angels. Let's talk about angels. Episode 99 was Olga. It's a great episode about prayer and a lot of things. And Olga, very faithful, very prayerful. And on this particular case, she was about 20 years old, and she had to get to the mall, buy a blouse, something. She had to get something, and she's just zipping through traffic. She was just right, left lane, left, right. She was just zipping all over the place, and she wanted to zip.
It was a 3-lane street heading to the mall, and I was swerving left and right just to get to the mall fast enough. And I was not looking in my mirrors. And at one point, I wanted to get into the left lane, and I yanked the steering wheel. So I yanked the steering wheel hard to the left, wanting to get into the left lane. And simultaneously, in the same moment, the wheel yanked equally hard to the right, and it wasn't me, such that my car stayed in the middle lane. And again, practically in the same moment, this double long tractor trailer, and before that, I didn't even know that double long tractor trailers existed. That was the first one I had ever seen. It went by me on the left-hand side. It was going 60, 70 miles an hour, and it was such a powerful vehicle that it shook my car. I was in a big car, but that made my car vibrate, the passing of that giant truck going by me on the left. Had I gone into the left lane, and when I yanked that steering wheel to the left, I did it with all of my will, my desire, my intention. It was my will to get into the left lane, but it was something else's will that I not. I wouldn't just been dead. I would have been vaporized. I would have been a red mist spread by the wind over a long distance, because that truck would have just vaporized me in my car. And afterwards, I thought, not in the moment, because I couldn't even think. I was like, But afterwards, I thought, I was very well aware that my life had been spared in that moment. But that truck driver, he was not aware that his life had probably been spared in that moment. And the people driving around me probably were just driving unaware that their lives had been spared in that moment, because that truck was so big and long that it could have flipped over or rolled over or whipped around and taken out many vehicles. The crash would have been catastrophic. A lot of people's lives were spared in that moment. It wasn't just about me.
They have no idea.
And they had no idea. And I thought, we go through life and we have no idea how often we are spared, how often we're saved, or, that our lives are saved. We have no idea the things that are going on behind the scenes.
The angels and their highway patrol work it must be nonstop when you think about all the things that coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Exactly. My guardian angel deserves a promotion. When I die and go to heaven, hopefully, I'm going to ask God to give my guardian angel a big promotion.
I don't know if you ever heard the Zoltan Jaska. He's the trucker who had the exact same experience you had, only he was the one driving the 18-wheeler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would take us to Zoltan. This is the case from the view of the semi-truck driver. Zoltan has his own company, originally from Hungary.
I was driving in the middle lane. There were 5 lanes.
This happened a few years back while he was driving his big truck through St. Louis. He's on a 5-lane highway. He's in the middle lane. He's going 60 miles an hour.
And I wanted to change my lane. I wanted to go into the right lane next to me. And my steering wheel wouldn't budge. It didn't move at all. It was totally fixed. I mean, it felt like it was welded to my truck.
It's stuck. You couldn't go right. You could not move right.
No, I couldn't move the steering wheel at all. Not a millimeter, nothing. And I was driving 60 miles per hour. And I was, that got my attention, believe me.
If you can imagine yourself in this situation, 5-lane highway, you're in the middle lane, 60 miles an hour, big truck, you're freaking. I can't move the steering wheel. I can't get off this road. He starts to slow down. He's starting to sweat now. I'm going to kill somebody in this thing if I can't figure out how to get off this highway. How do I get off this highway? This is going on for a little while. And that's when he sees the car come out of his blind spot.
And the car suddenly emerged from my blind spot on the right side of my truck. But luckily, my steering wheel didn't allow me to change the lane, and the car could pass me.
Wow. Protection for
And
both of you. Wow.
Absolutely. And after the car passed me, I could change a lane.
Then your steering wheel moved after they passed you.
Exactly.
At the time, did you believe in angels and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But it wasn't my first thought. My first thought was, "Oh, okay, what's wrong with my truck?" So I pulled over right after this incident, and I inspected the steering mechanism. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I was, jerking the steering wheel to the right, to the left, nothing. I couldn't see anything.
Zoltan takes his truck back out onto the highway again. Yeah, everything seems to be operating fine. Steering wheel is fine. That's just weird. What was that all about?
And my truck was driving just fine. I could steer. Still, no problem in my truck with the steering wheel. And then, of course, I realized that, it was a divine intervention.
One of God's flare guns again. That's the flare gun again going, "Hey there, Zoltan. Do you see me here? Do you see what I just did there?" After all is said and done, does it change your relationship anyway, or just what does it do?
So it's done a few things. What it's done is it has made me more interested in kind of understanding, I guess, a number of things. I read, and kind of explore, NDE experiences. But I think the other thing it's done is it's really sort of broadened maybe my view of God. It caused me spiritual confusion, but it did another interesting thing. It kind of confirms the presence of God, but still sort of uncertain about, his rules or his plan. Kind of removed my fear of dying. It's not that I want to die anytime soon, but if I'm not afraid of dying, then what else do I have to be afraid of? But I think what it did is it sort of confirmed for me, I knew that God is there and that there's more than just this world, but I've struggled with feeling connected to it. I know it's there, but having that connection is more the struggle. And I think that's more where I ended up sort of trying to process this experience.
When you're sitting there, you didn't call the wife right away? No, I didn't call anybody. Yeah, and it would be a while before. How soon before you could even talk about it with her? I would say it was probably a couple of years. Really? Yeah. Yeah. Some of us would be, on the phone going, "You ain't going to believe this one." But because of where you were certainly at that time, this is not registering. Yeah, it was a couple of years. What do you remember the reaction? Understanding and acceptance of it. I have not encountered, and I've not told it to a lot of people since, but I have told it to a number. I have not encountered anybody, at least to me, telling me that they didn't believe it. And even people that aren't deeply religious, that things like that can happen. Just like when I told both my wife and my sister about the experience of even waking up hearing, you talking about this specific type of incidents, both of their reactions were, there's no such thing as coincidence. Let's pause right about here. Then more with Kevin here at Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. Quick Patreon shout out to Roy. How you doing, Roy? Roy Woolery, one of our favorite family members in the Patreon family. Roy, actually, this is perfect. I'll do the shout out for Roy this show because he found us through Coast to Coast the first time I was on the show back in 2018. Heard some things he hadn't heard before, came aboard, and now supports us at a level that he's on our monthly Zoom call, which is cool. And we try to rotate everybody through on those Zoom calls. Those are fun. But if you'd like to join Roy and others, you can come here to episode 192 and just click your way through to Patreon. Or you go to patreon.com directly and search for Trapper Jack. But thank you for your support. All right, let's get back to more of Kevin here on Touched by Heaven. And he does want a relationship. He does want to bring us in closer, and sometimes he'll do something to get our attention. Then it's up to us. It's all free will how far we want to take that.
Yeah, and I think still some of it was also the just some of that spiritual confusion, and it was after that sort of my drinking sort of became problematic. It was different, and it was more about escape and numbing, and it wasn't social drinking. It was isolated, and I think that if I was impaired, my sort of spiritual curiosity would disappear. It would go away. So I think that was part of the struggle also is I think that while I was drinking, I don't know, maybe I was just even avoiding, I know it's there, but I don't know what it means. And maybe I was just avoiding some of that discovery that I needed to do.
Yeah. When there's confusion added onto the pain that is life. We all reach for the numbsit somewhere along the way, or it's like whatever that is for us, whatever escape that is for each of us. And you've obviously moved away from your growing up Baptist teachings and all. Is there any longing at all in all of this to kind of go back to basics, just to see if you missed anything in the Christian realm or not?
I think what there is there's what I've found is a desire to as I do my readings, which are mostly still Christian, and combined with Native American, I would say is kind of where I'm at, and the two are not incompatible. If you ask a lot of Native Americans, Jesus Christ is the Great Spirit. But what it did do is it's made me try and find some, I guess, original meaning, and try to get a I guess you could call it a more pure understanding. Try to get away from denominational dogma, and back into the true meaning, and really sort of embrace the ability to have an individual relationship with God.
There's something to add to Kevin's story here. He's had a couple of hip replacements, and in one of them, I think it was most recent in the past year, afterwards, he's somewhere along the way, he dislocated his leg, and they had to put the leg kind of back into the socket there, the hip and everything. But to do that, it would be too painful if he was conscious, so they have to knock you out to do this. And propofol wasn't working. Go figure that. That didn't make any sense. So they tried this other drug. He'll tell you what it is. But in the process of using that drug, he had an experience.
The colors, the intensity of sort of the colors in the movement started slowing down, and the colors started fading, and then there like wasn't even darkness or light, and then this distant. I start seeing this distant light, and I'm either moving towards it or it's moving towards me. It's not like a tunnel, but it's there, and the space between me and this light feels like it's closing in. And it's at this point that I thought, I've read enough NDE stories that I start really wondering, okay, am I alive or dead now? And I didn't know, but it was a real possibility. I started thinking that maybe something went wrong in the ER, and respirator or something like that. But so I started having this feeling, this real strong feeling of dread. And what comes into my head is, and this light, it's not brilliant, but it's just sort of white and brightening. And I start remembering the stories about people who've had near-death experiences about how they start, they do see a light, but they start feeling this intense sense of peace, that it's this euphoric, pleasant experience. And I wasn't feeling that. I was feeling this sense of dread. And the fact that I wasn't feeling this sense of peace just made the experience that much more terrifying. Thinking, what could this mean?
You mentioned that you'd had, you read a number of NDEs. Not all of them, obviously, were heavenly experiences. I'm assuming you saw some of those that went the other way, too.
Yep.
And was that creeping into your mind as well?
Actually, that wasn't. It was what was just creeping into my mind was the fact that I was not experiencing this feeling of peace. and euphoria. But it was just such a real experience that felt more than just a ketamine trip.
Yeah.
It was sort of this, almost like this sort of spiritual wake-up call. Like, the fact that I was not experiencing that euphoric feeling was like, okay, I really need to start finding myself spiritually. But it wasn't pleasant. It was extremely disturbing. Anyone can have their opinion about whether or not that was just a psychedelic trip from the drug. But, even if you read about, there's plenty of examples, Native Americans with peyote or mescaline, it's a tool to make that connection to the spirit, another realm.
It can.
And
yeah.
so,
yeah, it can.
And so this, I sort of, to me, my truth is that that's what this felt like. Like I just read another thing that I found really fascinating and interesting. I love history too, and I read a lot of history, especially like American Revolutionary time period history. But I read the Jefferson Bible, and I found that it was just a really interesting way to read. Where he sort of reorganized the Gospels into the lessons of Jesus. Kind of what he did is he took away sort of what people would see as the miracles and the supernatural.
Yeah,
piece.
he took away the divinity of Christ. He made him a guy who said a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and I found it just very interesting where while you didn't have that divinity, at the end of the day, you still have all these great lessons. About and kind of one thing that I've kind of taken from all of this is coming back to, how you treat people. Just kind of how, the importance of love and knowledge and respect. And so, I think those are things that just kind of help are helping me as I, just really absorb a lot. I don't think I've always like to read, but I don't think I've ever read as much as I have.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think one of the most astounding things St. Paul says is love is greater than faith. Even if you don't quite get the God stuff, if you get the love stuff, that'll take you to God, Right. That'll get you there. And that when you have Jesus in Matthew 25, and he's separating the sheep from the goats, here's who's going to heaven, here's who's not. And he's making it very clear who fed me, who gave me drink, who came to visit me, who clothed me, and that's love, and that's key. I can know everything. I can know the Bible backwards, but if I'm not taking care of my fellow man and in fact ignoring them, good luck with that.
Well, and I think one of the most common things that you hear from people who've had their NDEs is that the most intense thing about them is the life review and experiencing what other people felt during your interactions and dealings with them.
I love that. I love that you see
how you made other people feel,
how you made them feel, and the ripple effect it had on other people is astounding commentary.
Yep.
Yeah, great teaching comes out of that. That's the fruit of the NDEs. You're right. That life review.
Yeah, and I think that hearing those stories, but then having the experiences I have had, which weren't those, but which confirm, this greater world that's out there, makes those stories that much, almost as impactful on me as if I had that specific experience. Right. It's the strongest takeaway that I take from all of it, I think.
Well, I'm glad you said the word takeaway, because that's why I always say, well, what's the takeaway? I guess you just said it.
There we go.
This has been terrific, Kevin. I so appreciate that we could finally connect, and it's always interesting to watch God work how he works, and coincidences that are not, and for you to wake up right when I'm talking about one of your experiences, a very similar one. So it's always fun watching God shoot off the flare gun. That's beautiful.
You bet, Trevor. Thanks so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks,
Great.
Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. I am so glad you reached out to me after Christmas morning. A little gift on Christmas morning, right, where your angel woke you up. Said, listen to the show. because I so relate to you, and I know a lot of other listeners do too. I mean, I was out there for 30 years seeking, searching, what is, and not paying a whole lot of attention, to be honest with you, until finally something came along where it was like, oh, and I just swallowed it whole and I found peace. I guess that's the bottom line. I had done transcendental meditation, and which has some benefits, great benefits, but comparing that to prayer with the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and having direct messaging and back and forth and that love, there's just no comparison. And I have to ask myself, given the choice of, I'm thinking about Thomas Jefferson, wonderful president, but it's a little bit like, would you rather have Clark Kent or Superman? One of them can save you. I want the dazzle. I want the awesomeness of God, and I find that in Jesus Christ. And then that takes me back to Christmas morning. I think you received a gift, Kevin. I really do. I think your angel did wake you up and took you back to that horrifying moment.
Brief, just split-second moment of absolute terror. And it's just this instant feeling, and that's it. I'm dead. And then the next thing I know, I'm still on the motorcycle and I'm still on the road.
Still on the road. God's still shooting off the flare gun. My experience is that he kind of swings by every now and then to say, hello, I'm here. And he just invites us in deeper and deeper. He loves you. He just absolutely adores you. So what's your story? Pray tell. Pray tell. Get a hold of me here at touchedbyheaven.net. Thank you for your Patreon support and being a part of the Patreon family. If you'd like to do that, come here to episode 192 at touchedbyheaven.net or go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. Also, stay informed, if you will. That's something else you can do here at 192. We send out newsletters every week with some Touched by Heaven stories that you may not be aware of, all right? Okay, so I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.